Hey there. Welcome to the Austin Wallin channel. I'm your host, Austin Wallin, and I'm going to be starting this YouTube channel to talk about personal finance, macroeconomics, important world events, sports, just a variety of different topics and things that I love to talk about and think about and just get my thoughts out there. So we're gonna see how it goes. But yeah, so this is my first video. I'm gonna give a little bit of background about myself. So I'm 28 years old. I was born in Calgary, Canada, and I currently live in Houston, Texas. And I think for the most part, I'm just trying to figure out my way. So it's been an interesting journey, especially over the last like 5 to 6 years. I've gone down a rabbit hole, especially with the whole COVID thing. It put me down this like financial freedom rabbit hole and really kicked my butt into gear. Because before that, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I mean, whoever thought it was a good idea when you turn 18, just instantly go to college and literally have zero clue. You just kind of wasting money is pretty much what I did. My parents will tell you that. And just try to YOLO figure it out. Well, no, not exactly the best idea. But here we are doing okay. I graduated from the University of Houston a few years ago, and yeah, it's been a ride since. I have a degree in supply chain management, and my biggest goal is to eventually help others and also just kind of document my journey on what's going on. So with that, um, I think the main topics that I'm gonna want to get in on this channel are gonna be very simple stuff at first regarding personal finances, savings, budgeting, getting out of bad debt, potentially getting into good debt if that's something that interests you, um, etc. And again, I love sports, so we're probably going to throw some sports stuff into this as well. But for the very first topic that I want to bring up, because I just thought it was crazy. I was looking through some charts, and so I'm gonna bring up a chart here, or a few charts, and I want to show you all this because this is just nuts to me. So, yeah, I first got into personal finance when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I read that book in the middle of COVID. It was probably 2 or 3 months in. There wasn't a lot going on. I just graduated from school, barely got a job because I had done this internship while I was in school. Great idea, by the way. And when I read this book, it pretty much just blew open my mind, and I was like, wow, everything that I ever thought about money was absolutely wrong, just terribly wrong. And I was like, man, I'm never gonna get to the place that I want to be without changing my habits. And so that book, like literally, like I said, it opened up like a Pandora's box of like new learning of stuff that I wanted to go figure out. And so it kind of put me down this path. And over the last like 3 or 4 years, I've just been nonstop consuming like personal finance stuff. I'm now really big into macroeconomics, and so I follow that very closely with what's going on in markets, and I'm always learning that. I think the beautiful thing I've really figured out is that you're never ever gonna stop learning, or at least you shouldn't, because if you're not learning something new, regardless of whatever it is, then you're not growing anymore, and it's just so important to keep doing that. It really is. Um, and so I guess I got a little sidetracked, but I wanted to show these charts to start out. So this is from the St. Louis Fed economic data, and I just thought this was absolutely crazy that if you look at this, the title of it is Consumer Loans, Credit Cards, and Other Revolving Plans, All Commercial Banks. So this is basically all the credit cards and other revolving debt that's out there. And as you know, around here is the 2008 financial crash. So it was on a just consistent upward trend. We get to the 2008 2009 housing crash with the mortgage backed securities and all that financial mess. And as soon as the Fed pump comes in, cuts interest rates to zero, you just have a pure parabolic. I don't even know if you can call this parabolic, just absolutely straight up in consumer debt. And then goes down a little bit, and then just since then it's been again a continuous upward trend. You get to COVID, government prints a bunch of money, obviously the debt's going to go down because people are paying their debt down with the amount of extra money that's in circulating throughout the economy. And this comes plummeting down. And what's crazy too, if you look at this and you compare this about the same time frame, so we got January 2020. This top is what, probably, yeah, April, March or April of 2020. You come back in here, March 2020, April 2020. So you can see as soon as the Fed puts all that liquidity into the system, the savings rate skyrockets, and not only that, but the debt of the American consumer goes down, and it goes down quite a bit. But since then, it's absolutely just been on another tear and just keeps going up. So I guess like my initial thoughts as somebody who's just really starting to get into this stuff is, at what point does this end? Because you have all this consumer debt in the system, but this can't go on forever because you have to keep paying down the debt. And with the interest rates the way that they are, this is not sustainable. So at a certain point, this is going to come down. So to me, it feels like the American consumer, even though we'll hear in like on MSN or whatever that the economy is doing great, is the economy really doing great? Or are we just putting so much money into consumer debt where the bill is finally going to come due at some point? And that's my initial thoughts with this. And it's just crazy to me too that people are now talking about a soft landing or a, not a hard landing or maybe no landing at all. We're not even going to have a recession. But how is that going to be possible when we just had the two or three top five biggest banking collapses in US history in the last 2 months, 3 months? That doesn't sound like the economy's good to me. And all of a sudden, it's been 1 month since the last one. I think the last one that was really struggling was like Pac West before First Republic got taken over. But Pac West was struggling. I mean, they were basically done and out. And I don't know, they must have gotten used the bank term funding program from the Federal Reserve. But that, again, I don't think is sustainable. And it seems to me like there's other banking issues out there that just haven't come to the surface. I might be crazy saying this, but I really believe that we're kind of in a situation that's going to be similar to 2008. In 2008, I was 14, so I don't really remember all the details, but over the last like 2 years or so, I've listened to a bunch of experts that actually went through it and talked about it, and I see a lot of similarities. So often you'll hear the saying, history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it rhymes. And I totally agree with that. And that's kind of my guess or prediction on what's going to happen in the coming months. What's really weird is if you go online and you type in Bear Stearns, right? And you look at the date that it collapsed, March 2008. And then you look at SVB, which is Silicon Valley Bank, and you look at when it collapsed, March 10th, 2023. And then I don't know why. I just think this is just such a weird parallel. But you look at this and you see Lehman Brothers. So Bear Stearns collapses in 2008. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be the exact same thing because I don't. I mean, 2008 was like its own beast with the mortgage-backed securities and the subprime borrowing and all that. But I'm just seeing a lot of similarities that I think are really interesting. So again, you look at this March 2008, September 15th, 2008. So March to September. You had SVB collapse in March 10th of 2023. My prediction is that what if we have some big issue by August, September, where you have the interest rates actually circulating through the economy and they actually start to hit later in the year. And that's what I'm worried about. And it feels to me, from what I've listened to as well, that bear markets tend to suck enough people back in to have these massive rallies, but then they're there to like claw you back down, which is and hurt the most amount of people, which is why they're called bear markets. And I really am convinced, based on all the other economic data that I've seen, that we're going to have something very similar to this timeline. Again, I think it's going to be different. I don't necessarily know if it'll be as bad, But based on all the data that I see, I'm really concerned. And the initial thing that got me looking at all of this was looking at this consumer credit, and you just see it skyrocketing. I mean, at some point, the American consumer is just not going to be able to spend more. And then you couple that with the savings rate, and the savings rate is at 3 or 4. This is 4.5% now. It's not very high. I mean, even here it went up to 4.5. The last month, so April, was 4.1. I would venture to say that it's around there again, maybe even gone down. I mean, these are all-time record lows of savings rates. I mean, you had 2005, it was 2.1, but it's like we're getting down there. But you also couple that with the consumer debt, and it looks more terrifying than what it did back then. I mean, yeah, you had low debt here around the before 2008, but you also had a low savings rate. But here you have a low savings rate and insane consumer debt. So the mix of those two just doesn't spell any good. Um, and another crazy thing that I feel like I've noticed is that I keep seeing the jobs report numbers, and it's like we keep adding jobs, or so the BLS says, or the government agency. They keep saying we add jobs. But what's crazy is like when I look outside and I see all these headlines. I see Salesforce lets 10,000 people go. Amazon lets more people go. Meta lets more people go. It's like all these big companies letting all of these people go. And then even myself, I got laid off about 2 weeks ago, and I was in a tech startup, and I got laid off, and I put in pretty damn good work. And I'm so like I personally felt it. I got personally affected by this stuff, but yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. So I guess I'm not gonna go into too much of a rant about this on this video because this is the very first one that I'm doing. But yeah, I just advice to say I would just say be careful out there. There's a lot of like craziness going on, and sometimes it feels like it's taking forever for stuff to happen, but before you know it, like things are just going to be happening and you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I wasn't prepared. So I would just say, in my personal opinion, based on looking at a lot of the data, the best thing that you can do is try to eliminate any debt that you have and really try to like build up a nest egg or a savings plan to put you in a position that in case anything does happen that you're going to be just fine. You don't have to worry about it because the last thing you want to do is have financial issues or problems where you're going to feel worried about you or your family or whatever. And yeah, so that's probably the last thing I wanted to just touch on. So with that, I hope all of you guys have an awesome day. Thank you for listening to this first video, and I will try to be sending out a few each week. So have a good one. See ya.